do whatever the Hyundai you want.
Hey, I'm Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
G'day, I'm Marcus Ambrose.
Hey, this is Kenny Rose, and you're listening to
The Fuel Pod.
This podcast covers all things motorsports. It's unfiltered, it's unmasked, and...
Ooh, we're going crazy. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 61 of the Fuel Pod. We're calling this one Max Headroom. I know that's not a song. I know that's a show from 1987, but I think it's fitting, and we'll explain why as we get into the show. I'd like to welcome my guest host, F1 Farmer. What's up, man? How you doing this evening? Oh, you're on mute. You have muted yourself. So this is what Chad felt like. This is awesome.
I know, right? What's up, man? How are you?
Pretty good, buddy. So, we have a little bit to talk about tonight. I don't know if you got a chance to look through the entire rundown yet.
I did.
But I'm going to say this twice because I want everybody to hear it. But here at the beginning of the show, I want to say that we are going to enjoy the F1 summer break by taking a break from the show for a couple weeks. And we'll be back on August 24th, which is the weekend of the Netherlands Grand Prix. I'll say it again at the end of the show, just in case you join us late and you won't hear it, which, by the way, you're not hearing me say this. But anyway, yeah, we are going to enjoy a summer break as well, since this show is first and foremost an F1 Formula One podcast. But, man, welcome to the show. We're going to talk about the Belgian Grand Prix tonight. We'll maybe do a little bit of lead into the Netherlands, and I want to talk some IndyCar and some rally and even some NASCAR tonight. So
good deal. Sounds good.
All right, good deal. So the Formula One Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-de-Francorchamps, which is my favorite circuit on the entire calendar. It's also the longest lap on the calendar. Averaging anywhere from 148 to 150 something as far as lap times go. Also widely considered the most dangerous. There's a lot of drivers that don't want to drive there anymore. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. And his screen has went black. Hello. Wow, he completely lost it. Anyway, this probably has the most elevation changes on the entire calendar. When you start at the start-finish line, you go into a very hard turn one, and then it's down the mountain and up the mountain and then back down the mountain. So very rough circuit. If you've raced it virtually, you know what I'm talking about. But very interesting. I really enjoy it. I think it's the most, it's one of those races where you don't get bored. That's a really good comment, Mikey. It's a really good race if you don't want to get bored. You know what I'm saying? If you race like, let's say, Circuit Paul Ricard, yeah, it's an iconic circuit, but it is very flat. It's very featureless. Whereas Spa, you've got the Eau Rouge, which is by far the most iconic turn in Formula One, and going up into Radion on the Kimmel Straight, which is a very long straight, doesn't get enough credit. And then basically, once you hit the Pirelli turn, you're down the mountain the entire time. It was a fun race to watch. But let's talk about the weekend. So going into the weekend, this was one of the sprint calendar races. So we did have a sprint race. As you could probably guess, Max Verstappen took the pole in the sprint and won it, and then took the pole in the race and won it. So now that that's out of the way for the guys that don't even belong in Formula One anymore, a.k.a. Max Verstappen, I don't know what we call him. Met a couple new guys today at lunch when I was with F1 Farmer. Enjoyed a nice lunch and talked some racing and talked some cars. There he is. Welcome back.
Leave it to the IT guy to have technical difficulty.
Yeah, I know, man. I've just been talking about how dangerous Spa is and how it's still one of my favorite circuits.
I could hear you the whole time.
Oh, okay. So, at lunch today, I got a lot of inspiration from meeting with those guys today.
Heck yeah.
Chuck specifically, simply because I was sitting next to him, and man, the guy knows knows his race cars, man, and knows his racing,
doubt
knows
about it.
cars in general. And both of them did, and I really enjoyed their company. But, they got me to thinking, too. We were talking about Max and how he's head and shoulders above everyone else, and then talking with Chaz. And we had talked about it a few weeks ago on this show. I don't know if you were on this show or if it was Chad, but talked about coming up with a separate category for Max because Formula One has become a multi-class event.
Max and everyone else.
Yeah, it's Max and everyone else. But he took the pole for both races this weekend, sprint and race, won them both. But let's talk about everybody else. So, I really want to highlight the start because there was about 19 different things that happened on the start of this race. First off was what I call the Checo sideswipe maneuver, where he just cut completely across the circuit right at the beginning. Which was great for him because he ended up being in the lead as they headed into the Kimmel Straight, which was crazy. But what it caused was Sainz to lock up, and it caused Hamilton to get beside Sainz and leave Sainz with nowhere to go, which left Piastri on the inside wall of turn 1. Folks, we haven't even went 200 meters yet. And Piastri's effectively out of this race.
Out of the race. Because I was so disappointed.
I know, man, because McLaren's been doing so well, and he gets bumped onto the inside corner of this track. And, his radio comms were like, I don't know what he was thinking. He just came right into me. But he had nowhere to go. Hamilton was on his left. I mean, he had nowhere to go.
No, but he probably took a little bit bigger dive than was necessary. I mean, again, it's turn 1, lap 1.
Yeah.
And his entire car, including the left side wheels, were all the way over the curb. He was completely off the track on the inside of that hairpin.
Well, he had just locked his left outside tires, man. I don't know. It seemed like there was really no way out for anybody involved in that, is what it felt like to me.
Yeah, perhaps a little less enthusiasm would be apt for Piastri. I think Oscar just got a little too, just forgot he wasn't in a go-kart for a second.
Yeah, that's true too. That's a fair point.
And he's a rookie.
Put him,
he is a rookie.
Like I said, coming out. Yeah, that's true too. And of course, Piastri and Sainz, it ended up ruining their race because later on in the day they ended up both DNFing and retiring.
Yep.
But so Checo gets up to the top of the hill, hits Eau Rouge, comes out of Radillon, hits the Kimmel Straight, and now he's in first place ahead of Leclerc. I mean, he just flew by Leclerc. And then farther back, so we had Hamilton in P3 at the moment, and we're barely 1 minute into this race. And Verstappen passes Sainz on the exact same move Checo did on the straight, and now he's in fourth. So, it's one of those things where it was really weird. So Max starts P6 because he had a grid penalty for a gearbox swap. By lap 9, he's in P2. I thought it would be sooner. I don't know how you thought about it, but he's in P2 by lap 9.
Yeah, although it was by a reasonable gap, to be fair, too. Checo had a really, really good first stint. And even compared to Max, he had a good first stint. Where Max really shines against everybody else is, I think, once he starts to get a little into some tire deg, that's where he separates the men from the boys and is able to really lay down the law as he so well does. But you don't know where he's starting, but you'll see him in P1 pretty soon. Yeah,
and by lap 17, actually, he was in P1. He passes Perez. There was no looking back from there. But I wanted to highlight some not Max Verstappen people for a second. My first one is Yuki Tsunoda, who had one of the most excellent midfield races I've ever seen.
Yes,
in my life,
did.
In a car that is absolute ass on that track.
As demonstrated by Danny.
Yeah, absolute ass is not a technical term, but let's be clear. In America, that car is absolute ass. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had not to quote Crofty, but he had a lights out drive, man. It was brilliant. He made zero mistakes that day. He had some very aggressive overtakes I really enjoyed watching.
Mm-hmm.
One on Alex Albon, who had, that Williams car was 20 kilometers per hour faster, as Julian
it was a
Palmer said
rocket ship
multiple
in a
times.
straight
Yes,
line.
man, literally,
Rocket ship.
yeah.
And Alex was driving the wheels off of it too.
Yeah,
Because in Sector 2 they were having such a hard time, but he was just wringing its neck.
Well, you and I have talked about this. I think all of us have talked about this at some point. A lot of these guys, if they were in, I hate to say it, but if they were in Max's car,
Mm-hmm.
how many of these guys would actually be equals? I still think Max would be the best. Because I think Max is a true student of his art form.
Yes.
Because he does a lot of off-duty work in sims and whatnot. However, that being said, I think you look at guys like Alex Albon and Lando Norris and even Nico Hulkenberg, dude, in an RB19
Mm-hmm.
or Danny. They've already
Mm-hmm.
seen Danny could have been on the front row at Silverstone if he was in the RB19.
Mm-hmm.
So, it makes you wonder how many drivers do you think would be given Max a run for his money if everybody was in the same car? If there were 20 RB19s on the grid, how do you think it would look?
I think at that point it really just comes down to which driver's driving style that design is conducive to. So, so many of these cars work for a particular type of driver and not another one. Guys that attack the corners early, that have abrupt turn-ins versus soft turn-ins. All these things come into play when they design the car. And of course, they design the car around Max. So anybody that has a similar type of driving style and likes a similarly set up car should be on his heels, I would think. Not ahead of him, I don't think. I really think the talent is still his to win, but he's also a guy that has a real specific taste for a chassis setup, and I don't know how many other guys on the grid share that taste.
Well, that was a loaded question for you, because apparently this week, Dr. Helmut Marko,
Oh boy!
And I stress the Helmut.
Yeah, right.
But Dr. Helmut Marko said there's only one driver in the entirety of Formula One that if they had an RB19 that could even get close or maybe beat Max Verstappen, and it was Fernando Alonso was his answer.
Yeah, sure. That was on the F1
happy,
Nation
course,
podcast, I think.
Yeah, as an Alonso fan, it made me happy to hear it. But
we all know that he's of that caliber. There's no
and he's
doubt.
a once in a generation talent, man. And
I think he can adapt to just about any kind of car too.
Yeah. And I think what made, and I want to highlight Daniel Ricciardo, not because of what he did or didn't do this weekend, but Danny Ricciardo in a Red Bull, even going back as far as 2017 or 18, he's kind of known for very aggressive overtakes. He's like the king of late braking. I think he's one of those guys that would, obviously he's done it before. I think Max has grown a little bit since then, but I still think Danny in a Red Bull would be close, simply because of his driving style.
Yeah. And they're of similar size and everything too, so he probably fits the car real well, balances in the car well.
Yeah.
That helps. I mean, a couple tenths can be had by just having a better ballast strategy, and the fact that those two guys are similar physical shapes and sizes helps a lot.
Well, that's true, man. I mean, it gives the car pretty much an equal weight, and if you're looking at it from a Parc Fermé standpoint. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about, I really wanted, and I've had like 6 conversations with you since the Belgian Grand Prix, and I've avoided this conversation because I wanted live reaction.
Okay.
But towards the end of the race, GB's on the horn with Max, telling him to slow down the car. And I took I don't know what your opinion is, but it really pissed me off.
You're talking the way Max talked to him?
Yes. Well, not only that, it was completely disrespectful, by the way. And I think we have to go back to qualifying where he almost got beat in Q2.
Mm-hmm.
And he was horrible on the radio. Now, Chad made a good point of telling me, I guess at the end of that qualifying, he was like, "Hey, I really like the fact that he apologized," and I had seen that, and I did like that. But then we fast forward to the race, and he's got the lead, and I think at that time he was like 8 or 9 seconds out, and part of it's selfish because in our Let's Play league, our F1 Let's Play league, my pick for his gap for winning was 15 to 22 seconds. And he surpassed that in the last third of the last lap. So that lost me a point on the F1 Let's Play. But let's focus on what's important. The fact that he completely disregarded everything his race engineer said. Now, what makes me laugh is the F1 broadcast crew is always like, Max and GB have this great relationship and this and that. Well, it's because he doesn't do anything he says, man. I don't know what your thoughts are. Let me know.
Well, so GP's been with Max since his very first race.
Right.
I think so they're probably extremely close.
Okay.
I don't think they make anywhere near as big of a deal out of that interaction as we're going to. I think it's in one ear and out the other, racing driver shit, just the way it is. That being said, respect-wise, Max was a little, he was kind of not cool about it.
He didn't need to win, dude, by 30 seconds, man. I mean, it was stupid, and he could have saved the car. Not that he needs to save the car, because he's proven even if he has to take a grid penalty for a component change, he's still going to win by 23 seconds.
Right. Yeah.
So
and he knows that. He's that confident. There's so much confidence in Max that he said, or we just push hard and give the boys some more pit stop practice.
Here's another question,
which he could have done.
It literally just came directly from my ass. But here's another question for you. What if Max was in a McLaren or a Williams or an AlphaTauri? What do you think? Where do you think he'd be?
Always ahead of his teammate, no matter who it was.
Okay.
And I think, you'd see a probably 2 to 3 position average increase in finishing from wherever that machinery was already at. So you're not going to put Max in a Williams and Albon in a Red Bull and Max is going to catch him. It won't happen. The machinery difference is just too great.
All right, how about Max in a Mercedes? If Max is in a Mercedes, is he on the podium every week?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Unless somebody else just has an amazing day,
Yeah.
But, that's somewhere where, an Alonso in a Aston can spoil that day pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And speaking of that, let's talk about the finish order real quick. So we had 7 teams represented in the top 10. If you're looking at the
I love that.
7 teams in it. The only ones out of it were Alfa Romeo, Haas, and Williams. So we had So we have Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc on the podium, and we haven't said anything, but my hat's off to Ferrari. Leclerc, it was actually a miracle, I think, that they ended up in P3. They obviously didn't have the pace. They didn't have the pace of the Williams car. So I think that's a testament to Charles Leclerc's ability to drive and the team's actual not screwing up the strategy this week. Yeah, I know, man. It's tough to say. I hate saying it as a Ferrari fan, but it's the facts.
But it's gotten to a point where
Yeah. Lewis Hamilton from Mercedes comes in 4 in a car that probably didn't deserve to be up there. Alonso probably should have been up there and wasn't. Russell in P6. Lando Norris. Let's talk about that for a second. So Lando Norris had a shit weekend, but he starts out, just behind the front row, falls to 10th, falls to 17th, and finishes at P7. I don't know if he got driver of the day. I didn't stick around for that. I went straight to the post show. But man, anybody that goes from like 5th or 6th to 10th to 17th and back to 7 probably deserves to be driver of the day.
Yeah,
and especially in a car that was hurting.
Yeah.
Esteban
He's
Ocon,
the real deal.
P8. Yeah, absolutely. And I think McLaren's going to really show their teeth moving forward. But Esteban Ocon in the Alpine did a good job. Gasly could have got there. Gasly fell just behind Tsunoda. Lance Stroll at P9, I think he could have been higher, and he had some good overtakes the other day. So that was excellent. And then of course Yuki Tsunoda, man, P10. After so many P11s, he puts that ATO4 in P10. So very happy for him, man. He was ecstatic about it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do moving forward.
Yes, definitely. Love Yuki.
Yeah, me too, man.
Speaking of which, did you see the Sky Kids commentator that was doing an interview with Yuki? There's Sky Kids where they have kids that are commentators and interviewers.
Oh, dude, that is cool.
It's super cool. Except when the kid is a foot taller than Yuki. Not joking.
I wonder if they got a booster seat in his car, man. I mean, it's hard enough to see out of those cars. I wonder if he does
have a special pedal setup because he is so short. They had to build a special pedal setup.
So it's a longer pedal setup that comes up to his feet?
Yeah, they just had to. I believe it's more about the linkages back to the master cylinders than anything. Because the throttle's electronic, so that's easy.
I mean, they could go full on Bad Boys too, and give him the donut like Mike gave to Martin Lawrence and go, "Hey man, it's a donut, for your ass." So yeah, that would have been funny too. So we do have summer break coming up. If you don't know, the Belgian Grand Prix is one of Max Verstappen's 2 home races because his mother is from Belgium and his father is from the Netherlands. And guess what the next race is, folks? The freaking Netherlands. Yeah.
Well, Max was born in Belgium.
Yeah.
His first passport was Belgian.
And that's
his Belgian mother was also world karting champion, European karting champion. She is an amazing driver in her own right.
Yeah, and it's just the double bang DNA, man. I mean,
no kidding.
It is what it is. Kidding. It's almost nurture versus nature on that one, or the other way around.
Yeah.
But man, I love Zandvoort. I call it the bobsled track of Formula One,
especially the new Zandvoort.
Yeah,
it's even better.
They had to get special dispensation because the FIA has a rule on Formula One as far as the amount of max allowed banking that's allowed. And they needed 20 degrees, and they got it on that last turn coming into the start finish. So, dude, it's an exciting track. I know it doesn't get a lot of hype and hoopla and pomp, but it is a really exciting track, and there's a lot of great runs through there.
And and it's a short lap. It's a short lap time, so you get spectators get to see the car 20 times more than they would at COTA, or these guys get to develop a better rhythm because they have a higher lap count. The drivers love stuff like that. I know in karts, I love tracks like that.
And Mikey, you're absolutely right. I just posted your comment on here. Last year, I felt like they almost had a timeout because of the orange smoke. I mean, it was freaking ridiculous, dude. It looked like
this year,
like being back in the Army and popping smoke for a hot LZ. I mean, it was crazy.
They still threw it out about halfway or 2/3 of the way through the final lap at Spa, and Chuck and I both were just pissing and moaning about it because it's legitimately dangerous. And not only that, but what if somebody in that grandstand has asthma or COPD, or you can hurt somebody. I mean, you bury them in a group of people where you can't see to get out and you can't breathe.
And I got to tell you,
It's
as
just not
someone
cool.
who's seen quite a few smoke grenades go off, the smell's not that great either. One,
Oh, it's just sulfur
and two, you have to be situationally aware of where you are. You know, when you're in
Mhm.
Spa, you're right in the middle of a valley,
That's right.
and the shit ain't going nowhere. You pop that off, it's staying. It's going to linger for a while, which is great for combat troops, but horrible for
Yeah.
F1 racers, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
it's one of those things you don't want. And while the Netherlands is certainly a flatter course than Spa, it's still. I mean, we watched it. I think I was at your house watching it last year, and it
Probably.
was just insane. You're right. On that last lap, it looked like an orange sea of
It was
noxious
it,
fumes.
I think it was Austria. It was crazy there.
Yeah, Austria was
like
bad.
it blanked out the whole track almost.
Yeah,
It was just not good.
and they're never going to give a shit at Austria because it's Red Bull's home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
it's
were
just
some
the way it is.
There were some abusive fans over there too. That was a bad day for people in the grandstands.
Well, man, let's get into Rip from the Paddock, which if you're new to the show, and I say this every week, but if you're new to the show, Rip from the Paddock is where I go to the F1 website and I grab news stories, but I don't actually read them. And we just kind of guess what these articles say. And then if you want, you can go back and read the articles from the F1 website. I certainly do, to see if we got any of them right. But
I think this week's pretty self-explanatory.
It is. There wasn't a lot of material to choose from, man. Some of it was bad. Rip from the Paddock this week. So the first one is Horner. Christian Horner admits championship challenge likely out of reach for Perez in 2020.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
Yeah, no shit, right? I mean, I don't even know why you write that article.
Yeah. And it thinks that it's out. What is the only other way he wins if Max dies? I mean,
wow. No. Yeah. I mean,
but I mean, or is not in the race,
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, how many points is he back right now? I know the Constructors' Championship's
done. It's like 120,
503 to 246. Yeah.
It's like 125 point gap.
Well, I know that the magic number is usually like 379 or something, and it's usually decided by Brazil. But they're saying it'll be decided by Qatar this year. So,
sure.
Which will be interesting, but we'll see what happens. The second one, I'm not going to entertain that one anymore. The second one, Sonoda says his car was flying at Spa as he returns AlphaTauri to the points. And, this is a shit article, but I just want to highlight Yuki again because, dude, he's so fun to watch, man. Even when he's doing bad, he's fun to watch. But that AlphaTauri had no place being where it was, I felt like, this weekend. You had so many fast cars. Even the Alpines, I felt, were faster, but Yuki drove better. He
did. Yuki just did a great job. I see improvement in him every time he hits the track, and I love it.
I think if team principals stay patient with that kid, I'm not saying he's going to be a 5-time champ or anything, but he's going to be one of those guys when you and I are retired where we know he was a legend in Formula One.
I think he'll be like a Massa or something, or a Barrichello.
Yeah, and that's a good call. I think Massa's a good call for that. But yeah, dude, he's an incredibly talented driver. Him and Joe, and there's a lot of those younger guys, man, that are
the entire grid really is stacked with talent right now.
Yeah,
it really
is. After they offloaded Mick Schumacher, it really became a fully talented and Latifi. It really became a fully talented grid.
Did. And I really think the only one that I would have put in that category that's still on the grid is Stroll, but he's proven us wrong. He's showing he's got some chops.
Yeah, and Stroll kills me because he's one of those. I don't know if you're a big football fan, but when Brett Favre first showed up, Rob's going to give me hell on this one. But when Brett Favre first showed up in the league as a quarterback in the NFL, specifically for the Packers, you never knew which Brett Favre you were going to get every Sunday. He'd throw 4 touchdowns one Sunday, and he'd throw 4 interceptions the very next Sunday. And, of course, he became the legend that he is. I mean, and nobody can hold a candle really to what he did. But looking at some of these guys, they're those kind of guys. Lance Stroll is one of those kind of guys where one Sunday it's crazy overtakes and late breaks and doing what he's supposed to do, and the next Sunday it's like, oh shit, I'm sorry guys, I screwed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Consistency is tough, especially in this level, but you go back and you look at Lance's history and all the lower formula and karting and everything.
Oh,
he's won everything. He's won everything under the sun. He's got the talent.
I think, and I think it's unfair anybody that's still saying he only has a seat because of his dad. That's bullshit,
maybe
dude.
At that team they might be correct, but I still think he would have a seat. I mean, Williams would be happy to have him over Sargent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the next article on Rip from the Paddock, and this is from Toto Wolff. It's frustrating to go on holiday like this as porpoising returns to Mercedes at Spa. You know what's weird? I didn't see that.
I saw it a little bit.
I guess I entirely just wasn't watching Mercedes and just completely missed it. But apparently, they had some porpoising this past weekend. Yeah,
they did a big rework on the underside of the side pod, above the front of the rear tires. You have your extended floor that sticks out there, and then the side pod that overhangs that, and that inner work area, which defines the vortex skirt, because that's what's happening, is that that's why porpoising exists, right? The ground effect starts working too well. So the ride height gets smashed down to a point where it loses its ground effect.
Right.
Anyways, that big rework in that area that controls that vortex, I'm sure, is the reason. If I saw a side-by-side earlier today on it, and it is a drastic rework. So, and with as much changing as they've had to their side pod since the beginning of the year, who knows? From zero pod all the way to their third, maybe fourth iteration now.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And it's getting closer and closer to looking like Red Bull. Except Red Bull also changed theirs recently too, so that's kind of a weird thing. So my last one's actually our most relevant one, and it's going to sound like it's not, but it's extremely relevant. Alpine in no hurry to secure new team principal after sweeping management changes. I got to tell you, man, this blows my effing mind, and I'm going to tell you why. Because these drivers have very fragile sensibilities, and these drivers need to know. First off, they need to feel secure in their seat. And second, they need to know somebody's in fucking charge, man.
Yeah, right? So somebody's got to be driving the ship.
So this is blowing my mind that they're in no hurry. Now, are they in no hurry because their interim team principal is fine? And that would be great.
I think they're in no hurry because Otmar didn't get fired. Otmar told them to shove it up there, what, as did Alan Permain, as did, who was the third guy that left?
Laurent
no,
Rossi.
Yeah, but I was thinking of a guy that was part of this little exodus. Anyways, Otmar has said that he left because they had an expectation of becoming the next Red Bull before 2026.
Okay, well that's bullshit. I mean, that ain't gonna
exactly
happen.
And Otmar knew that was BS, and that's why he just said, well, you have unrealistic expectations. I'm not going to under deliver to that, so see you later.
Well, my favorite thing, and I think it should be listed, Elon Musk, since you're in the business of changing the Twitter icon from a bird to an X, which I think is stupid, by the way, which is weird because I support you in everything else you do, but I don't understand taking a lifelong icon and turning it into something else. But I think you ought to give Otmar the Tweet of the Year award, because he literally, I guess, looked at the Alpine upper management and said, you can't get 9 women pregnant and expect to have a baby in a month.
Mm-hmm.
Because
some things take a certain amount of time.
Right. And he said,
so Otmar actually tweeted that?
Yes. And he said, give me 100. Beautiful. Yeah, and he said, give me 100 races, This is what he told them when they hired him. Give me 100 races.
That's right.
And I'll make us competitive. And he had some people that were going to be coming on board in 24 and 25, but we obviously aren't there yet. And he's only 36 or 38 races into his 100. And they're like, dude, we're done. And I don't blame him for walking out. I think it was absolutely world class that he walked out right before the race on Sunday instead of sticking around for the race.
Did he? Did he not stick through the whole race?
He walked out when everybody was lining up in the paddock. He walked out.
He's like, I've done my job. We'll see you later.
We're all here. Everybody's good to go. The race is good to go. I'm out.
So I want to know whose private box he went to or whose RV he went to party.
No shit.
Immediately upon that departure. I'm sure he didn't leave the track.
No shit.
I wonder if him and Flavio were having a drink talking about it.
I think Diddy here is alluding to the fact that they ought to get Binotto in.
Oh, yeah, I don't see that happening anytime
Egon,
soon.
how's the wine business? I don't know how the wine business is going. I don't see Mattia Binotto being a good fit at Alpine. It's kind of kind of a finicky works team, man. It really is, and you got to be very careful.
An Italian, a born and bred Italian career Ferrari employee is not going to work at Renault.
No. I mean, Cyril barely did, and he is woefully French.
Oof.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that's ripped from the paddock. Let's, man, we're already at 46 minutes. Let's move into the Fuel Pod news. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be taking a break. We'll be back on August 24th, which is a Thursday at 9 p.m. And we'll be doing our big Netherlands Grand Prix preview show. So just make sure you set your calendars for that. I'm sure Farmer and I and Chad and everybody else will stay active on Twitter to make sure you guys are reminded that's when we'll be back. But I wanted to cover some other stuff, some other racing that wasn't Formula One as we move into the close of the show. The first one, and we haven't got to cover it a lot, folks, and it's the World Rally Championships. I'm still following it avidly, but I'm a huge rally fan. If you're interested in more rally, just make sure you comment with us on Twitter, engage with us on Discord or whatever, and we'll get more back in here. But Rally Finland is this weekend, Eric, and it's one of my favorite ones. I mean, I say that about a lot of them.
I know.
Rally Finland is one of my – a lot of loose gravel. I love loose gravel rallies.
And it's home rally for at least half the grid.
Well, yeah, no kidding. So we had the shakedown, which is the little 2 to 3 kilometer test run today, and we also had stage 1 of the rally. After those two things, Oit Tanik, Terry Neuville, Rovanpera, and Mikey, if you're listening, Esa-Pekka Lappi, and Elvin Evans, they topped the leaderboards after the shakedown in stage 1. If you're following the season, Rovanpera has somehow managed to put it back together because he had a horrible first third of the season and has put it back together, and he's in first place with a commanding lead. The real race is for second place. Evans and Neuville are separated by 3 points. And if you are a Formula One fan that watches this or listens to this podcast, they score on the same scoring system basically that Formula One uses. Mm-hmm. So it's exactly the same format as far as the 25 points and whatnot. The difference is a team can only enter 2 of their teams out of 4 to be qualified for points. So there's the strategy that's involved. So if you have 4 drivers, you can only pick 2 of the 4 to be qualified for points.
Is that per stage or for the whole rally?
No, that's for the whole rally.
Oh, wow.
So Toyota Gazoo Racing, out of all their teams, can only pick 2 of them to be what's called, qualified, right, that have to score to get their points. And, of course, they're going to go with their top 2 dogs. But anyway, that's where we are right now for the season. I don't know if you got to watch IndyCar any. I mean, we had the Joseph Newgarden back-to-back wins in Toronto. But this week we have the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. It's in Nashville, and I wanted to hit on this real quick with you because it's on a temporary street circuit instead of the regular Nashville course. So they're going to be buzzing around the football stadium and through downtown.
Yep.
Holy crap, dude! Thanks, Daddy, for watching that. Usually, don't know if I can get a lot of people to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're at a temporary course in Nashville. I think it's a street circuit. I think this is going to favor your guys that came from heavy street circuit backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so, I'm looking at. Go ahead.
I think you just go back and look at what was it? Detroit was the last temp circuit that they ran.
Yeah, Detroit was a good one. Yeah.
And it made for a good race. Coincidentally, the organizers that put together the Nashville Grand Prix, the temporary circuit there, and do all the coordination and construction, are the same guys that did the Chicago race for NASCAR.
Okay.
So they put on a great event. They do a real good job. I'm sure this is going to be a real good race.
Yeah, and I look forward to it. I think a lot of those guys, I put down here that can Newgarden keep his pace going, or will Palou spoil? I feel like Palou does better on street circuits. I feel like Newgarden's more of an oval guy.
He is,
and that's just more of my opinion, really, than anything else. But you look at a lot of the former F1 guys. Ericsson, I think, will do well. There's some guys I don't like that I think will do well. Kirkwood comes to mind right off.
Grosjean will do well right up until he crashes.
Right up until he crashes. That's exactly. I was going to say the same thing. So my predictions are going to be. I'm going to predict Palou, Pato Ward, and Marcus Ericsson. That's my prediction.
I don't know if we'll see Pato up there. He's been having a hard time, and I think it's up. I think it's up here. We know the car's fast. We see the other Aero McLaren's doing very well. Pato's been making mistakes and sticking his nose in places it shouldn't be, and getting a little cocky about it. And
yeah, that's true too.
I don't know that. I see him as taking one too many risks for a temporary street circuit. If it were a natural terrain road course, I would probably agree with you seeing Pato up there on the podium.
Well, who do you think's going to be up there?
Man, I think you had pretty good choices with the other two. Palou is, of course, just a monster, and he has every chance of winning just about any race. But Scott Dixon, Scott.
Oh shit! I didn't even think about it. Yeah.
He's an animal on road course or on temporary street courses, and on top of that, he's got the maturity to make it through a race like that and still be able to manage tire drag and manage fuel and all that while not hitting the wall.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But I think Ericsson's probably a good pick. We could even see Rossi up there. Heck, another one that's great on temporary road circuits, even though he seems to always have some sort of problem that keeps him from finishing or has some damage where he's got to stop and pull a new nose or something. I'd love to see Graham Rahal up there. Graham has been having a real tough time. Dude. Man, it's been rough.
He's had some shit like horrible pit stops, bad pit entries, bad
But he's had fast cars. He's been qualifying great, but his race luck has just been shit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man.
And just for the guy. I like the guy, and I like his daddy, and I grew up watching his daddy, and I'd like to see him have another top step before he inevitably exits in the next year or two, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And break that bad luck streak. Ugh.
Well, that's Indy this week. The race is at 12 on Sunday. If you have Peacock or NBC, it's on there, so just make sure you watch it. IMSA, which is one of my favorite circuits we never cover on here. They're at Road America this weekend, so if you're a big IMSA fan, be sure to give them. And last but not least, before we get into podiums, back markers, we'll talk about NASCAR. So this weekend, and this weekend,
by the way, and Xfinity was at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, that's true. But this past weekend, NASCAR was it was the Franks and Beans 400 at Richmond. It was actually the It was actually the Cookout 400. Dude, can you think of a more uninspiring? I think Frank's
I
and Beans
saw that.
400 is a better name.
It is.
I'm just going to say that.
Pork and beans.
Yeah.
I mean,
so the Beanie Weenies 400 was at Richmond this weekend. Tyler Reddick was on the pole. Hamlin and Busch, it looked like early they were just going to fight it out, but Reddick took stage 1. It was completely uneventful. I mean, this was like the F1 race in NASCAR. It was total pack racing. Nothing happened in stage 1. Nothing happened in stage 2. Bubba Wallace, who's been in nothing but like a shit show forever, did very well in stage 2, but Brad Keselowski won it. Stage 3, we had the Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, ridiculous going at it version 3 of their little fight they've had going on for a couple weeks, which is funny because the second part of that was literally Larson pissed off because Hamlin said some hurtful things on his podcast.
Although I think Denny needs to pick and choose what he talks about on that podcast. I've watched it a few times and he comes off pretty arrogant.
Well, dude, first off, he is arrogant.
That's true.
And second, he can be kind of a putz, but I mean, he does have talent. I mean, I get that, and I
don't particularly care for Denny,
you say.
But,
yeah, I don't either, dude. Not at all. Anyway, Chris Buescher won. He held off Hamlin for the win. It was, it was not the most exciting race, and that's all I really want to say about it. Next week is the Where's Your Sister 400 at Michigan. It's actually called the Firekeepers Casino 400. Okay. I don't know what any of that means. I don't know what
it's an Indian casino, I'm sure.
Sure. I like the Where's Your Sister 400. I think
we'll go with that. Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, so podiums and back markers, man. I'm not going to do music tonight, but my podium for this week in third place is Max Verstappen. Simply because he's always going to be there. So I want guys that actually have to work for their wins. Lando Norris is my second place on the podium because, like I said, he went from, I think, 6 or 7 to 17th and then back to 7. Yeah. So brilliant job there. And then Yuki Tsunoda, for the first time ever in the history of the Fuel Pod, is number 1 on my podium.
Nice. Yeah, for mine, I realized if I switch off of this, I'll go back to my notes. I'll lose it. So I'm going to have to do this from memory. But in no particular order, I had McLaren and Lando as well.
Okay.
Also had Yuki up there for laying down a point. And when I wrote this, I didn't know that Otmar had up and took off at the beginning of the race. But I was going to say they had a P8 and a P11 for Alpine on Otmar's last race, and I was happy to see that for him.
Okay.
There was another one I had in there on the podiums as well that I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah.
Okay. So for my back markers, my number 3 spot is Alpine for thinking that they don't need a team principal because that's about the most asinine shit I've ever heard in my life. Number 2 is Checo Perez for the side swipe maneuver on the start of the race, which I thought was absolutely a selfish thing to do. He could have taken out a few drivers on that. And I like Checo. I get it. He's the Minister of Defense and blah, blah, blah. And he's an excellent driver. He's one of my probably top 5-6 drivers as far as people go. So it really pissed me off when he did it because it looked dangerous, man. And I didn't like it.
And by the way, Checo is the podium that I forgot.
Oh, okay. My number 1 back marker is a guy named Checo Perez. So it's the 2 different Checos. One's the Checo that does the dangerous sideswiping maneuver on the start-finish line. The other one is the Checo Perez that is in the same car as Max Verstappen, but lets him get 30 seconds ahead of him. Yeah. I'm not real happy.
I know.
I'm like, dude, what the F, bro?
No kidding. And my back markers are almost identical to yours. I remember my notation for Alpine for being ignorant. Just bold-faced, flat-ass ignorant. and losing some of the best, most capable people in that paddock, one of which who was there for 34 years.
Yeah.
With Alan Permain. And yeah, just a complete and utter F up by them. Arrogant F up.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, guys, it's been an hour and 11 seconds, and that's all I've got. And we covered a lot of information. I didn't think it was going to go this long tonight, but it did. Eric, as always, dude, thanks for being a lifesaver, being on the show with me. It's so nice to have somebody to bounce
Always,
off.
buddy. Anytime I can, I will.
Well, I hope you will. But you can catch us both on Twitter. I'm at jneil729, and Eric is at F1Farmer. Obviously, you can join us on Discord at Fuel Pod. Just hit me up on a message, and I'll get you on there. Catch us when you can on here on our YouTube channel and our Twitch channel. I'm the same name, jneil729 on that as well. We should have some racing coming up here pretty soon. I don't know if it'll be tonight. I'm on vacation this week, but I know Chadwick is not. So, yeah, here we are. But thank everybody for being there, guys. Eric, you got anything else?
No, man. I think that covers it.
All right, man. Let's do it. Diddy. Yes, Diddy. It's going to be a long break, buddy, but we'll be back as soon as we can. All right, man.
And we're going to do a preview. That'll be good.
Everybody have a good one. Thank you.
We'll see y'all.
Later.
Is this thing still on?
Yeah, it's in after party mode. You can go ahead and check out if you want. I'm getting ready to close it out in just a second. I was just finishing up a couple of things real quick.
Right.
But thanks, man, for being on.
Yeah, you bet, dude. We'll talk it.
All right. Later on.